It is a pleasure to see you today, and I thank you for accepting the invitation to reach out to the community and provide some education as to how our specialties work together for the whole wellness of each individual we serve. So, could
Thank
you
you.
please tell us about yourself and your background in terms of your care that you provide?
Well, first, thank you for having me. It is a joy to be with you and to focus on this topic. My background is in terms of training as a licensed psychologist. I'm also board certified in African centered Black psychology and have for many years also practiced transpersonal breath work and spiritual coaching and counseling. And my current work also involves teaching. I'm a associate professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York.
Yeah.
And I guess the biggest exciting thing in my life for me, or the longevity, is also being a certified ancient Egyptian yoga practitioner. That has certainly been the center of my life and focuses, I think, nicely with our talk and what we hope to share today.
Definitely. And it's quite amazing to me how the ancient Egyptian traditions intertwine with healing in ways that we were not taught about as we were matriculating through our professional curriculums and education. So, having that as continued education and enrichment to what we've already learned in our academia and what we are teaching as professors in universities, what we're allowed to expound upon, and what our students and clients and patients are being instructed to do by us in combination for their wellness, how those two things meet for the oneness. So I thank you for being here with me again today. And in terms of breath work, I oftentimes direct my clients to their breath because it's that one thing that many people can identify with, but it's also that one thing that we are not in tune with often enough to breathe correctly for our wellness and for the purpose that the breath was designed for in our creation. So could you tell me some about what you feel breath and being in touch with breath does for an individual and being in touch with their own interception and their self-control and regulation of their nervous system? Could you expound upon that for me?
Yes, I think you laid the foundation there in your initial, comments. So there are about 22,000 opportunities every day to breathe, right? So
Right.
22,000 breaths that we are taking, which provides an opportunity for us to reset our nervous system, to ground our energy, and to be able to balance ourselves. The breath, as you know, right, is the only autonomic body function, right, that we can consciously control. So we can be, breathing and totally unaware of our breath and the functions that it is enabling and engaging with it within us. Yet we can also take control of that breath and slow our breathing down, speed our breathing up, more consciously connect our breath to our sense of awareness of ourselves. And in the ancient, systems of Kemetic philosophy, breath was considered, this source for connecting to our essence, connecting to what I like to call our sense of spirit, or that which, we believe is the sacredness within us. And really, there is no separation between that sacred essence that gets infused as we breathe. There's really no separation between us and that energy, and the breath just helps us to have a greater sense of connection to it.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that union is fortified with the breath, and the realization and the awareness of that union becomes more perceived when the breath is the focus and when you're in tune with how the breath permeates and affects the body and calms the mind, brings in that newness of that energy to the system.
Absolutely. So, in ancient times, and if you ever visit Kemet, so Egypt, modern day Egypt, and
Mm-hmm.
you visit some of the tombs and the temples, you'll see lots of images of this ancient symbol called the Ankh. And the Ankh was a symbol of, considered to be a symbol of life. And not just sort of life in the sort of waking sense, but life in terms of the eternal life that we have. And often the imagery is of the ankh being held to the nose of what's called a royal personality or different individuals, and that symbolism of the ankh to the nose was sort of a direct reference to the interface, right, between the sort of sacred spiritual energy that exists and that gives life to us through our breath, through our nose. And
Right.
so, we are very fortunate as beings
Mm-hmm.
to be able to have access to our breath as a tool for unifying our consciousness, being aware of ourselves in a beyond the personal level. I said some of my work is grounded in the transpersonal. Transpersonal means beyond the personal. And it's just a way of describing that there's an awareness beyond our physical. Certainly, we know that deep breathing helps with anxiety, reducing anxiety, controlling our breath. We know that it can help enhance and uplift our mood and, to feel more relaxed. And it can help us spiritually when used with or leading to meditation. It can lead to, expanded states of consciousness.
Consciousness. Right. So the breath of life, right?
Hmm.
And how that affects our cells, our brain, our interconnectedness, our biofields, the energy around, within, and our connectivity with each other and with other energy bodies around us. So that brings me to the utterance of speech and sound. So that requires breath, controlled breath, whether it's the inhalation, the exhalation. So, in terms of mindfulness and activating the vagus nerve, for example, for calming the nervous system or um, activating or decreasing hyperactivation of some things within our system, since we have these nerves that control so much of our body that we don't have full volitional control, or it's being controlled for us. But we can regulate the nerve
Mm.
with our breath and with our mindfulness. So there's that cyclical which comes before, and how do we change a cycle. So
Mm.
do you have any thoughts on changing healing cycles or unwell cycles, or improving those things with breath, mindfulness, um, even the transpersonal awareness, keeping it subtle, but can you expound on some of those things for us?
Yeah, so I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I want to hear your thoughts because I know I know your expertise in this area and around the vagus nerve and the power of that. So
Mhm.
I think, one simple way I think about this is, when we are breathing and the breath is, flowing, and when we are connected to our sense. Well, let me back up a little bit.
Mhm.
So the way I conceptualize our sort of being or our sense of ourselves, one way anyway, is that everyone has what I call a sense of spirit. and
Mhm.
that sense of spirit being defined, or spirit being the energy, right? And breath being the means through which we sense or, activate that energy. And when we are connected to that sense of spirit and connected to and through the breath, we tend to function more optimally. We tend to have better, communal connection, better interpersonal relationships. We have better moods. We have better mental health. When we are disconnected from our sense of spirit and our breath, we tend to function more suboptimally, less communal connection, poor interpersonal relationships, less
Mhm.
mental health. And so the, disease, right, that one may feel personally, emotionally, physically, right, we can make parallels in our experience to the extent to which we are connected in our breath and breathing and practicing full breaths and full breathing practices.
Right.
Um, so I don't know if you were alluding to it in specific breath practices or specific, I guess, suggestions.
No, not specific practices,
Mhm.
but the outcome, which you did direct your commentary to. So,
Mhm.
in terms of changing one's breathing pattern or retraining a breathing pattern that is unhealthy,
Mhm.
what would be, other than direct guided or facilitated breath work, are there mindful practices or anything that you would recommend or could
Mhm.
recommend that people can do on their own to
Yeah.
improve their breathing?
Yes. I mean, I think first you can make some assessment of your breath, right? And kind of make note of the frequency of your breathing.
Hmm.
So I like to call it a breath awareness test,
Right.
where you can, set a timer for 1 minute. And while you're breathing normally, just count the cycles of breath, right? You hit start, you breathe normally, count each cycle of inhale and exhale, and then stop the timer and note the number of breaths. Um, Research varies on how many breaths people, have per minute, but I believe it's about 12,
Oh,
right? It could be for some people up to 16, if you're breathing kind of really rapidly and heavily. And we want to practice slowing the breath down in terms of a more curative pace of breathing or curative
mhm.
practice of breathing. Really, 6 breaths a minute is an ideal number of cycles in order to be sort of fully connecting um, the breath with the body's sort of internal processes, and getting the body to slow down and to regulate itself and to activate more of the curative processes that are at play. I don't want to go into it a lot, but like through practicing a slower breath, 6 beats a minute, we're able to reduce our heart rate um,
Right.
in
That's
general.
where I was taking this,
Yeah.
because when you reduce the heart rate, you improve the health of other body parts. So
Yes.
again, with the breath, we have direct control over systems, but we
Mm,
have to practice and develop breathing practices that are intentional.
mm-hmm,
And then our breathing naturally would change because our system is becoming more regulated towards a healthier breathing pattern.
mm-hmm.
So in your practice, I'm sure you see people where their sleep is affected. So
Yes.
I experienced that as well. So when we run into individuals that may have sleep disorders, whether they are using a CPAP machine or not, and they begin to do breath work
Mm-hmm,
and they begin to have weight loss changes and their heart rate begins to change because of lifestyle changes, you see where changing breath, changing heart rate, and this is not for just every patient or every client. I'm just showing how steps can be made
Hmm.
to change your disposition. It may not be the cure for your condition because you may have already progressed to a certain point. But let's say, for example, um, it could be end of life.
Hmm.
So we could do breath work to guide or to help someone be able to transition more
Hmm.
peacefully.
Hmm.
And that is very effective. It helps with pain management,
Hmm.
it helps with anxiety. So there are different things that could be addressed with breath from a wellness perspective and preventative measures. So go ahead, you were going to say?
Yeah, so I had a question. Your thoughts about when you mentioned the end of life and sort of the ways in which working with someone to manage to breathe, to slow down their breath. What
Mhm.
do you see or as the benefits and how might that shift someone's transitional process?
Well, when the breath calms and it quiets and their heart rate slows and they're able to feel the bioenergetic connections,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's between their environment or between themselves and the people or person that they're with.
Mm-hmm.
They're more readily able to accept energy healing, even if it's remotely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember seeing people or helping people remotely before FaceTime or these sources of, visualization with remote calls were available. And just getting that um, connection mentally with the person and having them guide their breath and calm, they were able to be more at peace and it calmed their family as well to
Mm-hmm.
help them be present in the transition because it wasn't as tedious or,
Mm-hmm.
laborious. So, and again, that communal bonding energetically changed.
Yes.
So those are some ways that in end of life care that I've seen.
Yeah. No, that's great. I wanted to hear your
Yeah.
extension on that.
So it's, and of course you could use it in the beginning of life as well, because in birth we do breath practices.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's another topic. So I also noticed that people report better quality sleep.
Yes, that's where you're going with it.
And that's important because that restorative rest is part of the healing cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So inflammatory changes that are present in the body don't get a chance to purge when we're not resting well. We have inflammatory markers that show that, and then you have changes in the brain with individuals who are not able to rest. In your line of work, can you elaborate on how rest or lack of restorative rest affect their healing, their wellness practices that surround their mental health?
Yes. Well, certainly, first going into sleep and trying to get to sleep from a psychologist, and psychological perspective, is a significant issue and problem for many clients and people that I work with. And,
Mhm.
often it's associated with, a sense of anxiety, the mind being very busy, unable to slow down. People who are on their devices a lot in the evening time are affected by the blue light stimulation, which then, keeps them more awake and alert. So, difficulty with sleep and getting to sleep is something, very common.
Right.
And so helping people develop, sometimes what we call sleep hygiene or
Mhm.
a breath practice to do before going to bed can be, very powerful
Right.
and critical
Yeah.
to them, getting well rested.
Mhm.
Once, engaging the practices to get sleep, we know, as you said, that there is a need for restoration that occurs during sleep. And if one is not get it, or the sleep is disrupted, the brain doesn't have an opportunity to sort of cleanse out the gook from the day. And
Right.
so being able to rest the mind for at least, a 6 hour period allows the brain the opportunity to restore itself. And I'm saying the brain, but it's really the entire
Body.
body. Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah,
it's a
but I'm
lot.
asking specifically about the brain because of mental health. So
Mhm.
you're, yeah,
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
but I don't in any way want to artificially, describe one part of the body as separate from another.
right.
That it
Yeah,
is important to understand, and I think, the whole perspective that you are really bringing forth is that all is connected,
right.
and so it is important to, engage our understanding of the breath and its impact, holistically. That it's not just helping the
Hmm.
brain, it's not just helping the physical body, but all these things are interconnected, which is why it's so powerful.
Right.
So if you really can kind of seriously engage the practice, you will see, waking up in the morning and feeling a little leaner, around the
Mhm.
abdomen, or
Yeah.
feeling rested and refreshed
Hmm.
mentally,
Hmm.
because all those body systems are being
Improve.
renewed.
Yeah. And so when someone has that realization, and this is where the education that we're doing is helpful, because when someone has that realization and they spread the word, again, that goes back to you're going to work, you're in a better mood, you're in a healthier community, you're operating from a different mindset or a
Hmm.
different space of wellness, feeling well. So when you practice or when you guide someone to practicing breath work and you're having them direct their breath or direct light toward a particular body part, and that person is not well versed at breath work, do you encourage them to continue on their own, or do you instill that they use guidance to acquire the technique first?
Yeah. So it's a little bit of both, and I generally recommend engaging in guided practice,
Hmm.
and that for a period of time. So my practice, my training, lasted several years, in terms of learning to do the practice, breath work, and then just engaging my own practice. So
Hmm.
it was with guidance, and I do think it's important to be guided, because a lot
Right.
can happen and there is a need for processing, sometimes the things that come up through the practices. So I generally advocate guided processes, and I advocate group processes. So
Right.
the majority of the work that I do around breath work, I do in group practice, and then work with people individually to process the things that come up for them in the
Hmm.
in the group breath experiences.
Right. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to touch on that specifically because I noticed that, you and I, we've been working on these practices for years. Like you said, it took you a long time.
Hmm.
And now there are a whole host of audio clips, recordings with guided meditations and breath work.
Hmm.
And people are embarking on these independently. And while it is encouraged that you take some wellness tips or skills into your own hands, it is wise to be guided initially because things do change.
Hmm.
And without guidance, it could become a deterrent to your wellness.
Yeah. So in ancient times, right, using the ancient Kemetic, ancient Egyptian traditions, you know, people had preceptors, spiritual teachers,
Hmm.
spiritual, guides, and you went through initiatory training processes. And those practices then, by having someone who could guide you to help verify the experiences and things that you were having, it provided an affirmation for what it is you're doing. Now, I will say that there is also, the experience of direct practice where people can um, gain lots of spiritual growth and insight
Mm-hmm.
um, independently. Yet, what can happen, and you use the word deterred, is you can go along and be engaging in the practices and have something that's off, but you don't know it's off because you are in your own world.
Right. You don't
you
have an
know
evaluator or an observer.
yeah, no one to help give you feedback or
Exactly.
insight, right?
Hmm.
And the ego, can run amok.
Right.
People can have spiritual experiences. They can be using the breath to help them have expanded states. And then if the ego, is too much out front, then the person can come across, and have all kinds of maladaptive ways of
Right.
functioning that they're not aware are maladaptive.
Right. And then that's where wellness becomes the opposite of what we're going for.
Right.
So, that's like with anything, some people
Hmm.
take their eating healthy to extremes and
Yes.
then ended up becoming malnourished.
Hmm.
Or exercise, over exercising and becoming
Yeah.
too lean or losing
Hmm.
muscle mass.
Yeah, hurting oneself. Hmm.
Right. Again, so balance in everything that we do and being well
Hmm.
advised and educated and guided when it is something that you are not experienced with.
Yes.
And in educating the community, that is something that, we all want to impart. While we do encourage your independent healing and wellness, it is encouraged that you seek professional guidance
Hmm.
and you get the education from people who are able to one-on-one assess you, because there's no one exercise that is wonderful for every single person,
Hmm.
but it may be wonderful for you in a way that is specific to you, or
Yes.
even timing that's specific
Mhm.
and safe for you.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's really important advice. And again, often, difficult for people who may be having, their own practice that's, very powerful and
Hmm.
has worked for them. But when you're certainly when you're starting on this journey, you want to be connected to community, to, again, a teacher, a guide, and in order to, get support, verification, and not hurt yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because it is the breath of life. However, even
Mhm.
breath, because it's so powerful, if we do things that are incorrect or inappropriately performed, we can cause altered effects.
Mhm.
Well,
Yes.
this is very important for the community to hear and for people who are interested in healthcare, because that is something else that I would like to encourage people to do, become more integrated in providing healthcare as a provider.
Mm.
Um, in minority communities, we don't have enough individuals that are able to be sensitive to our population, and particularly with mental health and things like breath work and discovery of a lifestyle of wellness. Our communities tend to shy away from things that are not familiar to them.
Mhm.
So things like breath work, meditation, mindfulness, these are things that are becoming more popular and buzzwords. So it's becoming more of an opportunity to get into our communities where we really need to do a lot of deep healing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, I believe that these practices, these holistic healing ways of approaching healing, utilizing the breath, these are cultural and indigenous practices
correct.
that, have been, if you look back far enough, they've been a part of our cultural practices. And we have healers, we have,
Mhm.
medicine men and women.
Mhm.
Yet, we've been disconnected, from
Right.
these practices, or we don't talk about them because we get marginalized by modern, Western medicine.
Right.
And so, ideally, we will see and are seeing a resurgence, of our cultural and indigenous practices such that they are complementary, right, to
Right.
our
True.
professional development.
Mm-hmm. And and then seeing where some of our education stemmed from, because a lot of what we learn in modern healthcare really has its roots in ancient
Mm-hmm.
medicine. And
Yes.
if I speaking honestly, in ancient Kemetic studies, you see where all those ties, whether it's breath, wounds, mindfulness, energy, all those things
Mhm.
are connected. And unfortunately, a long time ago, I can't quote the date, but spirituality was removed from healthcare and or from
Mm,
medicine, and it's really connected. And to separate that is to disjoint the
yeah.
healing process. So, like you said, there's a resurgence, and with that return is going to be really revealing to see how much of history is going to repeat in terms of healthcare.
Yeah. You were saying about the health, practitioners and wanting to encourage, more of us to integrate these holistic practices of wellness. And
Hmm.
I just want to highlight the importance of recognizing that that is about, engaging your own process of
Right.
wellness, right?
Hmm.
That in, traditional Western medicine, a medical doctor is not necessarily following the
Right. They're not
practice.
healthy a lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's not a part of the
It's not
practice.
a prerequisite.
Yeah, it's not a prerequisite. Whereas in most ancient and indigenous practices and traditions, you're practicing what it is, you're
How you're
offering. Or,
living,
yes, you're
your
living it.
lifestyle. Your lifestyle permeates through your work, and your
Yes,
work is part of the way you live.
yes,
And,
yes.
that goes into how we try to educate our patients, because it's not about, we don't want you to be unwell.
Hmm.
We would really prefer to be preventative, right?
Yeah.
But if something happens and you become unwell, if you were doing preventative, your recovery would likely be a lot less tedious, a lot less taxing, a lot more revealing. Because sometimes we do go through things that we need to heal, to go back to things that we never healed before.
Mm.
And, that's a different conversation. So awesome, but uh, we'll stay on topic. At least I'll try to.
Okay.
Right. So we do want to um, keep in mind that cultural and energy and spirit and wellness and health is all interconnected, because your sociology, your culture, however you want to refer to it as, because religion is also a part of culture. For some people, it is their culture.
Hmm.
Their lifestyle surrounds their religious practices or spiritual practices. So when we go back to integrating, or the charge of being spiritual, that wellness component, because you want to take care of the body that is housing that spirit that is within you, that temple that you have holds the spirit within you. And
Hmm.
if we're not healing our spirits, or helping or working on our spirit, the wellness part, the physical wellness, the mental wellness, the connectedness, the oneness is altered.
Yeah. So if I can sort of expand on what you're saying, there's the idea. I think those of us who hold this um, holistic perspective around wellness, we have a, a fairly clear understanding of that fact that there is a essence to who we are that goes beyond the physical body. and
Mhm.
that essence, people describe it in many ways, but for the sake of this conversation, it's our spirit. It's the energy that connects all of us, and we then come forth as beings, right, in a particular lifetime with a physical body. And that physical body goes through the experiences of life, but the essence behind it is not going through those experiences. The essence behind it, is there observing, being a witness to, sort of what we are doing in
Doing.
this physical incarnation. Yeah.
Mhm. Right.
And so, if there are things occurring with the body, it's providing an opportunity for us to learn about ourselves on the most sort of basic physical level, to learn what we need to be well, right?
Right.
If what does my body need in order to be well, so that I am most directly connected and aware to my essence, my sense of spirit that goes beyond my body. When we're distracted, by the illness, it becomes more challenging to pay attention to the subtle, sacred aspects, that we are.
Right.
Hmm.
So with that, when someone has emotional burdens or some form of trauma
Hmm.
that's showing up as pain or some ailment in the body that's not tied to a specific physical implication or a disease process, and you know that that energy is embedded in that body part, and you start to educate people on that.
Mm.
Um, do you believe that in minority communities that we are able to impart that easier once we go back to our history?
Mm. So, good question. So, if I'm understanding you right clearly, you're talking in part about somatic um,
Mhm.
wellness, and the fact that the body, um, sort of
Hold
takes holds
the
it
sensation
holds
of pain.
everything.
Mhm.
The way I think about it is, the that is like the subconscious level, right? Our conscious level is our awareness in the, physical, practical, material realm. And then the subconscious is that level just below the surface, below our awareness, within our bodies, that, could be having a tremendous impact on our functioning and well-being, but it may or may not be within our awareness. And so I believe, because our people and our communities are connected to the earth, connected to nature, believe in these
Mhm.
holistic ways of being, that we have a great capacity for being able to heal
Yeah.
on that level, because we are already tapped into it, because we already believe in using herbs and using, things that are connected to the earth,
Right.
that may help the body in ways that are not the same as the way of just taking a pill, right?
Right. And the knowledge or the awareness that what you are doing is healing or intended for healing. From your standpoint in psychology, do you see where that increases the speed at which or
Mm.
the impact of the depth of healing once that person really believes that this natural medicine or this more holistic way is what's more beneficial for me? And I'm not really referring to a placebo effect, but just that knowledge, the knowledge of how it works, not just saying do this and it's going to work. Do you see where the knowledge and the understanding helps the healing process?
Yes. So again, from an ancient, Egyptian and Kemetic perspective, when one is trying to do something, like you must first have understanding. You
Hmm.
must first have some knowledge, of what it is you are intending. And
Right.
when you have that knowledge and that understanding, it's like it makes it, all the more powerful. There's an alignment that can occur that
Mhm.
then fosters and can support, things coming into alignment to help the
Mhm.
healing process. Again, there's no disconnection between the mind and the body and the spirit. And so if everything is in alignment, if your understanding of the mind is
Mhm.
in alignment with what you are physically trying to do with the body, yes, one more readily, I believe, engages the healing process.
Healing process, right. So that ripple effect, you engage it and then it continues once that understanding is there and you engage in
Mm-hmm.
the practices and um, you do the work that you need to do for the healing part of your journey in life.
Hmm.
Right. So yeah,
Yeah.
I really like to emphasize that part because the education part of healing yourself, your family, your community, it is empowering because when you know and you have the information and you don't have to depend on other people, you already have some tools that you can use to kickstart a healing process
Yeah.
before you engage in seeking a professional or give that professional information. Okay, I've tried this didn't
Mhm.
help, but again, safely.
Yes. So if I can comment on this, so I think
Mhm.
one of sort of the ideal things that people can do who are still invested in, Western medicine or going to doctors is you go and you may get diagnosis, you get information,
Mhm.
from your provider, and you should, seek out that consultation. Yet it doesn't stop there. So I think the mistake is when we go to our providers, we seek guidance and consultation, but then we stop there and we put all of the power for healing in
In that
what it is.
provider.
Yes,
Yeah.
right.
It's your responsibility now. I am not going to be sick if you make me well.
Yes,
And
yeah,
that disengages your power in your healing process.
yes. Yes. And so it's imperative that then you become your own investigator. You begin
Exactly.
to do your own assessments and
You have
research.
to know what normal is. What's
Hmm.
normal for you may not be normal, but we need to know what's normal for you, and then we'll go from there.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
there's no real normal. But when we say normal, what's typical of your body
Hmm.
on a typical day?
Hmm.
And do you know when that typical was not there anymore and what changed it to being atypical?
Yes.
Those things,
Yes. Because
being
if
in
you go
tune with
into,
yourself.
yes, being in too much, if you go into the doctor's office, it's only on that day that they are
They're
seeing
gonna
you.
see you, right?
Yeah. So
So
you
we
have
have to do better about educating ourselves about ourselves so we can
yes.
have that conversation when we go to the doctor because 95% of what you get from a doctor is what you tell them,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So that's
Exactly.
another topic as well, but we needed to address that because
Yeah.
that communication piece when you're dealing with your healthcare provider is important to get your wellness in the right direction. Because if you're not
Hmm.
able to share what your experiences are and what your symptoms are, then the provider can't lead in the direction of your wellness.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So I really am enjoying this conversation, but I'm also being mindful of the time.
Hmm.
And I would like you to give just a very short um, guided breath work if you're up to it. If
Oh, yeah.
not, you could give us some suggestions for um, calming our nervous systems.
No, absolutely. So, not too long ago, I curated a practice that I call Remember to Breathe, Remember to Smile. And it's a centering breath technique that invites us to both engage the breath and breathing, but also to engage the physical process of smiling.
Mhm.
So while one is listening to the guided practice, you engage both the breathing and the smile, because we know that, breath has its impact, right, in terms of nourishing us when we're breathing in the oxygen. But when we smile, we're also engaging an increase of the hormones and endorphins within the body. And so to do this exercise, all you simply need is to sit comfortably in a chair. You
Mhm.
want to let your hands rest free of any objects. You can place your feet on the floor and relax, your shoulders and your jaw. That's the first step. So getting comfortable is the first step. And the second step is becoming aware of your natural breath. So you can gently either close your eyes or just lower your gaze, where you're kind of looking down and taking a moment to simply observe your breath. So just noticing the breathing in and breathing out. You don't want to change it. Just notice it. The in breath and the out breath. The third step is to begin intentional breathing. And so this is where we start breathing a little more slowly and deeply. We're going to inhale through your nose, letting your belly expand as you breathe in. And then exhale through your nose or your mouth and kind of gently pulling your belly in towards your spine. We're going to take a few rounds like this to kind of establish a steady rhythm. Just inhaling through your nose, letting your belly expand. And exhaling through your nose or your mouth, gently pulling your belly in towards your spine. Now, our fourth step is to add the words of power. And so this is where remember to breathe, remember to smile comes in. And we're going to let our words of power, what we call hekau in the ancient Kemetic tradition, we're going to let our hekau guide the breath and the awareness. So we're going to inhale and in our mind say, remember to breathe. And as we exhale, remember to smile. So we're going to inhale slowly while we mentally say, remember to breathe. Exhale gently, remember to smile. Remember to breathe. Inhaling. Remember to smile as we exhale. And you continue this cycle. Remember to breathe. Remember to smile. And each time you allow yourself to gently bring a smile forth on your face. With each inhale, remembering to breathe, and each exhale, remembering to smile. Allowing the smile to gently make its way onto your face. Letting your breath guide the pace of your words of power. Allowing that soft smile to form as you breathe. If your mind wanders, you just gently return to the breath and the words of power. Remember to breathe. Remember to smile. This simple but powerful practice restores calm, connects you to your spirit, and centers your energy in the present moment. So, whenever you're ready, you can gently take in a deep breath, exhale it out, and allow your shoulders to relax or your body to begin to move wherever you might need to release a little tension.
It's always
And
good.
and so usually after the exercise, we like to reflect for a moment on what do you notice? Like you can kind of just pay attention to what you notice in your body, maybe on your face, any thoughts.
I feel softer, more
Yeah,
relaxed. Yeah.
yeah,
It's always beautiful. Thank you so much.
yes. Thank you for the opportunity to share.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation, and I'm sure the listening audience is going to appreciate hearing all you have shared. Your contact information will be shared on the attached information with the airing of the podcast. So I look forward to speaking with you again and seeing you soon. And thank you for your work
It's always a pleasure. So thank you.
in wellness.
Ta-
So